Dave Ingebretson. LeRoy Hyatt and I would like to welcome you to another edition of Fly Tying, the Angler's Art. We've got a variety of flies again to tie. We're going to start out with a rather odd dry fly called the traveling sedge, which really is a Canadian fly. Up there they talk about the caddis, they refer to the caddis as being sedges. And I think it's a British term that's carried over to Canada from the sedges. The sedges really refer to any caddis, but this traveling sedge, as I understand it, is a particularly big fly that skates around the water and causes a little wake on the water and brings up the big fish. It's a big enough mouthful of food. So that'll be the first fly we'll tie, the traveling sedge. Then we're going to tie a wet fly called the Mormon Girl and finish up for you warm water fishermen with a panfish fly, the spring crappie darter. Well, let's find out about the traveling sedge.
For the traveling sedge, now this fly, he bought it in, the fellow that gave it to me, he bought it in a fly shop. Like he said, it could have been changed any number of times, but he claims that this is what they've used. I have never seen a traveling sedge hatch going on, but he claims this fly worked very well for them.
I've fished a lot of sedge hatches in Canada, but not this particular one.
That's true, that's true. I'm going to use a standard black 6/0 tying thread. I'm going to use a gray easy dub. Now, if you don't have the easy dubbing, you could always just use any gray dub. The thorax will be a blue, blended blue. The tail, the wing, and the back will all be the natural elk. Now, like you said, it's a big fly. I have a number 4X long, number 6 hook in the vise. We'll dress that thread with the tying thread.
That is a big fly.
It is big. And that's what I said when he gave me the fly. I said, "You don't mean one that big?" He said, "Oh, absolutely." So, okay, this is what we'll do. All right, a little bit of this elk hair for the tail. Get all that under fur out. And we'll even them.
It's not a particularly difficult fly to tie, is it?
No, don't think so. Don't think so at all. Get rid of those butt sections. The tail will be fairly short. Get them all bound down. Now I'm going to get another clump of this hair, and this one will be a little bit bigger, heavier, more material. Not real sure how you would say that. Again, I'm going to get rid of all that underfur.
Make sure when you're tying with hair like this, you do get rid of the underfur and the short fibers.
Yeah, it won't stack if you don't get rid of it.
It just doesn't lay in well, and you get butts sticking out all over.
Now, this will tie in for the back and for the wing. Now, I don't know why they call it a wing, because it sticks out over the front of the hook. But I want it so it's got to be at least as long as the shank of the hook, slightly longer than that, at least that long. I'll trim those butts off.
Now you're tying it in with the points backwards.
Points backwards, because I want to fold it over.
Right.
I'll get all that tied down. And see, then as you fold it over, see, it will leave a little bit of that hair sticking out. And then we'll get some of this dubbing.
And of course, the wing shell material is much longer than the tail. You won't have any trouble grabbing the two and keeping them separate.
Now, if you don't have the easy dub, that's not a problem. Just get any gray dubbing. This is kind of probably would muskrat, I'm sure, would work very well.
Well, that easy dub has got a nice flash to it, though.
Yes, it does.
And it kind of gives you a ribbed appearance, too.
Come up about to that thorax area. I'm just a little bit over halfway. I'm going to take my dubbing tool and pick that out. Picked it out so well, I pulled it out from underneath the thread.
Now, for those of you that might have missed it, this tool he's using is extremely expensive, because first you need a popsicle stick. And then he's glued on either side of the popsicle stick the hook portion of the hook and loop fastener.
For a Velcro.
And so it's great for scratching bodies and roughing them up.
Now I'll put some of this blue dubbing on.
That's the part I don't understand.
I don't either. I asked him when he gave me that.
If the natural has blue in it or not.
He said he had no idea, but this is what they sold him for that particular.
I fish quite a bit in Canada, and so if I remember to do it, I'm going to ask somebody when I'm up there about their traveling sedges.
Yes. Now hook that tool in the middle, get a good bind on it.
I'll be seeing Vic Bergman this summer. He should know.
Oh. Now, I'll just make this dubbing, pull it to the front, or wrap it to the front. No, I have no idea what that blue, it's a pretty blue.
Oh, it's pretty blue.
But what it would represent, I could not tell you.
Well, some of the caddis, you know, have some odd coloring. In the
Yeah.
east, I know they have the granum fly that's a
Oh,
very olivey fly.
Oh, really?
A caddis, granum caddis. And,
Olivey?
Olivey. That's a new word.
That's a good name.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to grab this back, the hair that forms the back, if I can get it all picked up, and just drag it all over the back. And some of it's going to get away from me, but I'll cut them out. Then cinch it down.
And here you want to really pull hard to pop that wing up a little bit, I
Yes,
suppose.
well, I'm going to pull it forward and wrap under it, too. He tells me that when this fly goes through the water, this particular fly, not the natural, that this little wing will stand up in the air and create quite a little bit of disturbance. And I'll bet that's probably true. It would do that. And I'll come back behind, build a little whip finish in it.
Well, there's no doubt that this would skate across the water and leave a nice wake.
And he said that's what you're looking for.
And
but as you
again-
turn the fly over, you can see the color just stand out.
Again, watch the naturals and make your artificial act the way the naturals are. And if they're skating around, watch how long do they go. Are they going smoothly or another
Erratically?
new word, jerkily?
No, erratically.
That's
How's
the
that?
word.
All right. But there's the traveling sedge. Elk hair for the tail, back, and wing. Has the gray easy dub for the rear half, the blue blended dubbing for the thorax area.
Now for our next fly, we're going to tie really a classic wet style of tying. We're going to tie one called the Mormon Girl. And what are you going to put in it, LeRoy?
You know, I haven't heard of this fly for years. I lived in Idaho Falls for a number of years and fished it there quite often. For some reason, I've just gotten away from it.
Yeah, it's an old pattern.
It is, extremely. I'm going to use an 8/0 gray tying thread. The palmered hackle will be grizzly, and I've gotten up into this soft part here in front to get that softer hackle. I'll use a red floss for the tag. The body will be yellow with the grizzly palmered over it. The wing will be a mallard flank feather. Now I have a 2X long standard dry or wet fly hook in the vise. This is a size 10. And I'll dress that tying shank like always. You know, we say that, dress a tying shank like always. We can't say that too often.
No, well, it's just the standard thing to do.
Yes, it really does
because, of
need
course,
to
it
be
helps
done.
bind things down to the hook more securely. And if you're using any kind of cement along the way, it gives the cement something to soak into.
That's correct. And this tag is not very long at all. All thing it's doing, and my guess is it represents just a very small egg sac.
And you know, as long as we're talking about that, as you well know, a lot of people think when they spin deer head, it's got to be on a bare shanked hook. Well, it doesn't.
No, not at all.
No. In fact, Whitlock spins around all kinds of bulky stuff under there.
Anytime you tie those big bass flies, he ties that.
Oh,
happens.
yeah.
Now I'm going to take this softer feather, and you can see it's got a lot of web in it. I'm going to come up here just a little ways and clip that off, make my little V, trim it so that I have something to tie into. Except I just let the hackle fibers go and it all popped out.
And of course, if you have a soft hackle wet fly neck, that would be the one to use
That'd be
too.
the same, you bet.
But if you don't have it, this is a way to get soft stuff out of the dry fly saddle.
Now we'll use the yellow. This happens to be a 4-strand floss. And I'm going to, after I get this tied in.
Are you going to use all the strands?
Yes, I am. I mean, I want to try to. You put me on the spot when you ask me that kind of question. I'm going to try to. I'll get my rotary set up here. Got just a little bit of that sticking out. And I think I can use all 4 strands if I use my rotary feature. That way I don't have to run my hands up and down that tying thread.
Well, it keeps the 4 strands nice and flat.
And it keeps them together, yes, flat. That ran up there pretty tight. Now, if you wanted, you could definitely cut that back to 1 or 2, depending on the size that you're tying.
Well, you sometimes run into a problem when you don't have a rotary vise to wind it on with, because when you're running your hands on it, you separate them or twist them or get them to bulk up.
Or you could put it in a bobbin.
And this is a nice way to do it.
Now I'm going to palmer this soft hackle, and I don't want a whole lot of wraps in it. They want that body material to shine through.
I find oftentimes when I put floss in a bobbin, then the bobbin spins.
I know.
And it twists up the floss, and you don't get a nice flat body.
Yes, yes.
I thought I'd solved the finger problem snagging it, so I put it in the bobbin and made a terrible body.
No, it occasionally does want to do that. I'll clip that feather off, then I'll come in and just wrap it one more time. But you can see how that, even though that came off a dry fly cape, you get up in there and it does make it. And we'll take this mallard flank feather. Now this may be a breast feather. I can't tell you which it is.
I think it probably is a breast feather, looking at the coloration.
But it has pretty good markings on it.
The flank feather would be a little more heavily marked. And as we were talking before among ourselves, if you really want a well-marked gray-black feather, use a teal.
Oh yeah. I've just tied that the entire feather in, stem and all. You probably saw me pull it down to make it lay just a little bit flatter. Then I'll get all this wrapped in, build a little head. You know, I don't know why I quit using this fly. When I was over there, I mean, it's just kind of a standard fly that everybody used in a lot of the smaller streams over there.
Well, I think people, for some reason, have gotten away from the old classic, old-fashioned wet flies. And there's a lot to be said for them.
Oh.
These are the kinds of flies they used before the dry fly was even invented.
And I'll tell you what, if I had a dime for every fly that's been caught on some of these old guys, these old flies, I don't know that I'd be sitting here talking to you. I'd be someplace fishing myself.
Well, I can understand that.
Now I'll put a little bit of head cement on it. But you can see what that fly would do in the water. It's going to work just typical soft hackle. We've talked over and over and over about the action of soft hackle, and this would definitely do that.
And you know, fish with this, the old classic way of doing it is the downstream wet fly swing, cast quartering downstream, let the fly drift down, swing below you, twitch it a little bit, let it drop back, twitch it and draw it forward. The thing you don't want to usually do is strip it back fast, because that's bug swims upstream, but the fish are so dumb they don't know that.
Although occasionally, sometimes that may work very well.
We've got a little time here. I want to tell you the story of one time I was fortunate enough to, this was a number of years ago, so it was a different president I can tell you about, go fishing with the president of Eddie Bauer, who was a friend of somebody else I was with. Well, I rode up with him on the plane, and he said, you know, you're going to have to teach me how to fish. He said, I'm a tennis player. I don't know how to fish. And I thought he was kidding until I saw him in an Alaska river holding his spinning reel upside down, cranking backwards. And I said, oh, he was not kidding at all. Well, we got him casting with a fly rod, and there were caddis on the water, and we told him what to do. And then I went back up, and I looked downstream, and he was just stripping this fly straight upstream, skipping across the top of the water, and I started down to tell him, hey, that's not what we do, and he caught a fish. And before I got there, he'd caught another fish, and pretty quick we were all standing in the stream, casting straight down, skipping our flies up, catching the big rainbows like crazy. So there's an exception to every rule.
Always. Well, there's a Mormon Girl streamer, or streamer. I call it streamer, wet fly.
You could tie it longer as a streamer.
Long, sure could.
Oh, absolutely.
It's got a red floss for the tag. It's got yellow floss for the body. It's ribbed with a soft hackle grizzly, and it has the mallard breast or flank feather for the wing. Thread was gray.
Now, the next fly is going to be, for you warm water fans, the spring crappie darter. And I've got to say, you know, when I learned to fly fish, I fished for 2 years for warm water species before I got near casting range to a trout.
Oh, really?
So the warm water fishing is always dear to my heart, and I've been going back to it.
And see, I'm the other way.
Yeah.
I don't fish for warm
No,
water
I'm
fish.
going back to it, fishing more warm water species, just because sometimes I'd rather do that. I'd rather go out and catch a nice smallmouth bass and go to one of our little reservoirs and catch a 10-inch stocked rainbow. So I've been bluegill fishing and doing lots of things and having a good time. And panfish are available around the country to more people than anything else.
And I think this fly would probably also work for bass. I really
Well,
think it
yeah,
would.
and probably trout too, for that
Oh,
matter, in the
my,
lake.
yeah.
Let's tell us
All
how to
right,
tie it.
spring crappie darter. We'll use a 6/0 black tying thread. The rib will be silver, flat silver. Use a black chenille. The tail will be white calf tail, and the wing will be yellow calf tail.
You know, white and yellow are the two crappie colors.
Yeah,
How can you beat that? Put them on the same fly.
I have a 2X long hook. It's a size 10. I'll mash the barb in it and get it in the vise. Address that tying thread over the shank. And come to the rear. Fly has no hackle in it whatsoever. I was kind of surprised when I saw that. I really thought it would have hackle of some kind. Get a little piece of this calf tail off. Get rid of that underfur. And we'll even it up. Sometimes calf tail evens up very well. The next time you can't get it to do anything.
I rarely even try.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, with the calf tail, I kind of stroke it out and pull out the odd fibers and tie it in.
I'll get rid of those butt sections. Tie it down. I'm not letting go yet. Keep hanging on to that tail. And come back now tight on that thread. And there's got the tail in.
And calf tail, you can't come down tighter on because it's not hollow. It doesn't
No,
flare
it
like the
won't
deer
flare
hair
at
would.
all.
Yeah.
Now I've stripped a little section of that chenille off. You can see just the string there.
Reduces
Tie it
the bulk.
down.
You don't get a hump
Yes.
when you wrap over it.
And that's another reason why I left quite a bit of butt sections on that calf tail. to
What
run
I'll
up
often do
smooth.
on a fly like this is I'll put some rubber-based cement on all that
Oh,
stuff,
sure. Mhm.
and that fly will not come apart.
No. Hook will rust apart before all of that would come off. Cinch it down. I'm going to take one more wrap just to be sure. And then clip it off. Get all that bound down. And now we'll do a piece of yellow calf tail. You know, I see so many classes that I teach. Well, I want a piece of this yellow bucktail. They'll come up here and they'll clip off here and then they'll come over here. Pretty soon you got a whole bunch of blank spaces in a calf tail. If you'll start at the very bottom end and just keep working up,
Yeah.
it makes more sense to do it that way. Save the material you have. Again, we'll get rid of that underfur. And I know you don't stack them, but I've just always in the
Oh, that's
habit
fine.
of doing
No.
that.
It just points out that people do things differently.
Then we'll put this on. I want this to be just about half the length of the white tail. I'm going to clip them off. You could tie it in without clipping it and clipping it when you're done.
You know, it's curious. Earlier I made the comment that yellow and white were the crappie colors, and without thinking what you were using for a body, I almost said, and another good color is black.
Oh, did
So here you got all three of them.
Yep.
No wonder it's a crappie fly.
Yeah, black is an excellent fly.
Yeah.
Well, I should stop and adjust my vise, I guess. I got it spinning around. Now, I've let those butts stick out there just a little bit. I'm going to trim them. And then come in here and build a head. Now, with these flies, you can always have a larger head.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like every fly I see that way, it has the larger head in it. And we'll put a good whip finish
Well, you know,
on
that's a
it.
fairly bulky fly, and
Yeah,
it
it
really
is.
wouldn't look well proportioned with a tiny head.
Now, what will they take that for?
Oh, for about 20 minutes till they tear it up, unless
Oh,
you...
I see, yeah. I mean, for what does this imitate?
Are you going to ask embarrassing questions?
Well, you do it to me all the time.
Oh, I have no idea.
Could it be a small fish?
Well, I suppose a small fish,
fry of
and
some kind?
for some reason they like those colors, and who knows what they take it for.
Just some kind of an attractor then, too.
Yeah,
could
it's an
be.
attractor pattern.
Well, there's the spring crappie darter. Has the white calf tail for the tail. And you know what I left off of that fly, Dave? Was the flat silver tinsel ribbing.
Yeah.
I should have put that tinsel on. I just walked right through
Well,
it and
you
didn't
know,
even
that's,
think
that's
about
true. That
it.
would
Which
be a
would
nice feature.
actually dress
Yeah.
that fly up a
Yeah.
little. But there is a modified spring crappie darter. It's got the white calf tail tail, it's got the black chenille body, has the yellow calf tail wing, and should have had the silver flat tinsel.
You know, sometimes people ask, well, why do you put silver and gold tinsel and things into nymphs and other flies? And because naturals don't have that. No. They don't sparkle like that. Well, I think one of the reasons is that the natural nymphs, the natural bugs, are sort of translucent, the bodies. The light comes through them. And we're trying to create the illusion of translucency, but we're basically using opaque materials. So when you put a bright rib on the fly, the light doesn't come through, but it bounces
Refracts off of it.
and it gives the effect of the translucency. And it sounds good to me.
Yeah,
I suspect that's why it's done. And that's why we use fuzzy bodies so the light can come through. And that's why we use sparkly materials, like you know, some of the modern synthetics that sparkle. And it's all to create that illusion.
You know, another way you could tie this fly without having that rib in there, you could dub that fly with some of the newer synthetic flash materials that we have out there, which would really make an attractive looking fly out of that.
Yeah. But you know, we're dealing in illusions anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
And in fact, talking about illusions, a lot of people like to tie these very realistic nymphs. Well, they look great, and they're wonderful examples of the fly tying art. I've seen some that you think will bite you. They look so
crawl
good.
away, yes.
But the problem is, you know, we could mold a nymph out of a piece of plastic, and it would look perfect. But fish don't eat pieces of plastic, and when this is coming tumbling down the stream, it looks like a piece of plastic. And I would much rather have an impressionistic fly that created
works.
the illusion of
That's
life with some movement, the illusion of translucency, and it would look like something alive coming down there. So
Well, and that's why you have the soft hackle.
absolutely.
That's why you
So,
have all the moving wing material.
I'm an impressionistic tyer, and I don't know if that's because I can't do the others or not, but I've seen some things that could illustrate entomology
I
books.
have too, yes.
And they're wonderful, but not to fish with. And most of the guys that tie them don't fish with them either.
Oh, really?
The ones, a lot of people I know tie two versions. They tie the show fly and the fishing fly.
Oh, that's probably
And I've
true.
got a good
Sure.
example of that at home. Two flies tied by Bill Charles in Chicago, an old Chicago tyer. And one of them is just, it's the legs and it's just perfect. But then this is the one I fish with.
Yeah.
And I use that as an example in my classes all the time when I'm showing these things to people.
Well, that'll close out this show.
Yeah, today we started out with the traveling sedge, then we
Canadian
tried
fly.
the Mormon Girl wet fly, and now we tied the spring crappie darter. So you can go for a variety of things, and we really appreciate you joining us this time. Hope we see you next time, and in the meantime, catch a fish.
Dave and LeRoy have produced two 100-minute videos covering basic trout fly selection and tying for the western and eastern United States. For basic western and eastern flies videos, call 1-800-883-0124 or visit our website at publictelevision.org. Cost of each video is $16.95 or get both for just $31.95 plus shipping and handling. You can also order the programs from this series. Each videotape includes 3 programs for just $22.95 plus shipping and handling. To order, call 1-800-883-0124 or visit us at our website publictelevision.org.
For more information on this series, please visit our website, publictelevision.org.